Welcome to the Ben Mulrooney Show on this Tuesday, June 3rd. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Yesterday was a very significant day, not just for Mark Carney and his new Liberal government, but indeed for the entire nation. It was the first ministers' meeting, a coming together in Saskatchewan of our provincial and territorial leaders, as well as our Prime Minister, to lay out his vision on a number of issues and possibly to get some buy-in and some advice, some opinion from our provincial leaders. And now, how did it go? Well, we have to wait for those in attendance to come out and give us their assessment. Here is what Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, had to say about the meeting itself.
I'm going to be very blunt here. This has been the best meeting we've had in 10 years. Simple. Best meeting I've had in 7 years. And there was no expectations that the Prime Minister was going to come out and say, you get that project, you get that project. It was a great discussion. Now, we were all talking. Now it's time to put it into action. All of us are responsible. But I thought it was an incredible meeting, great communication, great collaboration, and we all walked out of that room united.
Yeah, I mean, so Doug Ford knows how to play the game, I think. I think he knows how to charm the people he's working with. Look, this is also about, if we're being honest, this is about a lot of money that is going to flow, I think, from Ottawa to the provinces. And so I think they had to play the game because they want to stay in the game when it comes time to that money being awarded. Apparently at this meeting, Mark Carney sort of laid out, as he sees it, the criteria by which the feds are going to decide on which national infrastructure projects get fast-tracked. Here's what he talked about.
We had wide-ranging discussions. There was a lot of preparation for this meeting. We discussed a wide range of potential nation-building projects, including, and this is far from exhaustive, the Western and Arctic Corridor, which, amongst other things, connects energy, critical minerals, and trade infrastructure, the Eastern Energy Partnership, critical minerals pathways, which include a range of critical mineral projects that premiers can speak to, the next stage of nuclear, from uranium to SMRs to large-scale nuclear, and a series of infrastructure investments for export diversification from ports to rails to last-mile roads.
He talked about a lot there, and all of it good. I mean, if this stuff materializes, that it'll be a net benefit to the country. I still haven't heard him say the word pipelines. Anytime I've heard Mark Carney reference pipelines, it's within the context of saying something to the effect of pipelines, ... if there's a national consensus to build them. Or, not necessarily pipelines, only if there's a national consensus. I've never heard him say pipelines the way he talks about critical minerals or SMRs. It's SMRs full stop. It's critical minerals full stop. It's never pipelines full stop. And I don't know why. He's a man of very precise language. So if he's not saying it, there is a precise reason why he is not saying it. And I don't know what the reason is yet. I don't know what the reason is. He was in a room with dozens of natural resource CEOs just the other day. There is no way he didn't hear a full-throated endorsement for the national justification for building pipelines from that group. There's just no way. You're not going to have the CEO of Cenovus in a room, and he's not going to talk about why we need pipelines. And Mark Carney, to his credit, it was a closed-door meeting. It wasn't for performance. It wasn't for show. I'm sure he was there because he wanted to get the details and the information. And still, today, no mention of pipelines, full stop. I'm trying to get to know this guy, and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, but this is a sticking point for me, and I can't be the only one. Let's go back to Doug Ford, because, as you heard, very much on board with this First Ministers meeting, very much on board with the vision of Mark Carney, which I take as it is. I take, if he says so, it's because he was in the room. I wasn't. Here's what he had to say about Canada becoming that energy superpower that we all want it to be.
And I feel if everyone cooperates and collaborates, we're going to make that happen. We'll make it happen, as you were saying, Scott. We will be a superpower when it comes to energy of all forms. And that's our goal today, to make sure that we have large national infrastructure projects that will benefit every Canadian from coast to coast to coast.
And see, that's where that's why I'm confused. When I say this, when I talk about Mark Carney not saying pipelines, it's not a loaded statement. I'm genuinely asking a good faith question, because then you got guys like Doug Ford who are in the room, who seems to be offering a full-throated endorsement of Mark Carney's vision. I know that Doug Ford supports pipelines. I think he understands the national importance for them. So for him to sit there and say these things, even though Mark Carney's not saying pipelines, I might be making a mountain out of a molehill. Maybe in these meetings, they are talking about pipelines, but they've been asked to be very judicious in how they say those things, because maybe Mark Carney believes if you give the pipeline people sort of an inch, they're going to take a mile of pipeline. And so he just wants to be judicious before he says anything, because once the cat's out of the bag, you can't put it back in. I don't know. But all the more reason to be demanding more details. And I would love for the press who have access to Mark Carney. I wish I was a member of that group that had access to Mark Carney. But I wish they would press him on that. And like I said, I think it's incumbent upon somebody to put a microphone in front of Mark Carney and say, what do you mean by a national consensus on pipelines? And if there is no national consensus, do you, as the leader of Canada, commit to being also the leader of building that consensus so that we can build pipelines? I very much want an answer to that question. The issue of, we talk about American tariffs all the time, talk about Donald Trump and his tariffs all the time, but there is a sizable effect to our economy due to Chinese tariffs on agricultural products. And here's a reporter talking to Mark Carney and Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe about Chinese tariffs and their impact on our agricultural sector.
Is the Canadian government prepared to lift the 100% tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles?
The Canadian government is engaging with its Chinese counterparts, including at the ministerial level, and we'll continue those discussions. They are a top priority for us.
I would just add to that, that is precisely what this will take to not only secure our market access for products like canola oil and canola meal in the long term, but to secure a more broad trading relationship with China. They are the largest, they are the largest populated country in the world, and likely one of the largest economies in the world as well. The fact that the federal government is working diligently not only to have those tariffs removed, but working diligently to broaden that relationship into the future, I think is precisely what we need to do as a nation.
Yeah, I would have liked a more direct answer from Mark Carney. I like the answer he gave, but let's call a spade a spade. The 100% tariff that Justin Trudeau's Liberals levied on the EV industry out of China, that was the action, and the reaction by the Chinese was to levy a 100% tariff on Saskatchewan's agricultural industry and exports. That's one begot the other. And so in order to lift one, I got to wonder whether the Chinese are going to say, hey, open up your market to our EVs and you can have access to our economy again for your agricultural products. It's pretty simple. I've never been involved in bilateral communication with the Chinese. I'm not quite sure. But it seems to me the answer to the question is the problem, fixing the original problem in the first place. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Air Canada was celebrating something on Twitter. It didn't get the reaction they expected. We're going to talk about that on the other side of the break on the Ben Mulroney Show. Welcome back to the Ben Mulroney Show, and I would love for you to call into the show because I want your take on an achievement of Air Canada that they were very proud of and that they shared on social media. On the Air Canada Twitter, or on their X, they wrote, "Our first all 2SL LGBTQIA plus flight was a heartfelt celebration reflecting our unwavering commitment to inclusivity and equality in the air and on the ground." So apparently this was the very first time that the entire flight crew, from the pilots all the way down the aisle through the flight attendants, was made up of members of that community. here is a little snippet of that post.
We are doing the first ever, now let me get that one straight because a few letters have been added to this one, 2S LGBTQIA plus flight ever in Canada. I do identify with the progress flag. There's something in there that represents me as well. So it was a bit of joy having the opportunity to do this flight today.
Okay, so let me just say off the top, because it needs to be said, I'm proud to live in a country where pilots and flight attendants and people from all walks of life can work in whatever field they want. And but this did not land with the people of Twitter the way I think Air Canada expected, to the point that they had to turn their comments off. And it doesn't offend me. It doesn't rise to the level of offense. I just don't understand the point of this. First of all, they recorded the whole thing and they made a whole video about it, which means there's no way they shot this without taking up time, which means there were people on this flight that just wanted to get to their destination, but of course they couldn't because of the shooting schedule. And it's a fairly robust shooting schedule. You can see lots of camera angles, lots of people being interviewed, lots of speeches that had to be given. And this is all of these people have jobs at Air Canada already. Like, the pilot wasn't hired because of an initiative. This pilot already worked at Air Canada, and his co-pilot worked at Air Canada. All the flight attendants already worked at Air Canada. It's already an inclusive place. I'm unclear as to what the purpose of this was, except the performance of it. And look, Bud Light got it wrong a couple of years ago when they hired a transgender influencer named Dylan Mulvaney to be their spokesperson, and they saw their profits drop $1 billion. They dropped to the number 3 beer in America. I think they were the number 1 beer. I have absolutely nothing against Dylan Mulvaney. I'm sure they're a wonderful person. And again, I'm proud to live in a country where if you are gay and want to be a pilot, you can work at Air Canada, as is testament to the fact that these people already worked there. I'm just unclear as to what the point is, except the performance of it all. I don't believe that makes flights any safer, any more reliable. I don't think that it makes I certainly didn't make that flight on time. There's no way they left on time. And so I want to hear from you. I mean, Canada, I've said before, it will be the last bastion of woke ideology. And nobody asked for this. Nobody asked for this. And I don't know. They're not coming out unscathed on this. It was busy work for the sake of looking. Look at me and look how inclusive I am. But you're already inclusive because you got gay pilots and you got gay everyone. Like I said, you didn't hire them just for this. They've been in the company for a long time. So what's the point? Thanks so much for watching the show. Now, if you enjoyed what you saw, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of The Ben Mulroney Show.